Hey, what's up, college football fans? We're back. Here we are, another week of the Swampy Coliseum Podcast. Nathaniel Gilmore is here along with me, Andrew Hudson. Man, crazy week. Nathaniel, we were just saying before we started recording, how are we going to keep this under an hour? I just
Yeah,
don't know.
and I don't know either.
Well, we have so much to talk about, so let's just get it started off the top. We're going to talk about my Florida Gators coming off of a good win against UCF. Man, we had questions coming in. UCF even being favored at Florida in the swamp is such an indictment on the Florida program, but they came out and played. I mean, Florida came down with a 24-13 victory and really were in control the whole way. And the second half was a little more sloppy. We didn't score at all in the second half, but had a flurry in that second quarter. Once again, quarterback play overall was 23 of 28 for 230 and a touchdown. Just under control. Running backs got the game going 130 rushing yards. Really, the biggest thing that happened in this game was our defense. Our defense that has looked like nothing for this whole year, really the past few years, but holding this UCF rushing attack to just over 100 yards rushing on the day, which was fantastic. They're averaging over 300 on the season. And KJ Jefferson, a quarterback who came into the swamp last year and beat the Gators playing for Arkansas, was not able to put anything together. And so just a great showing for the Gators here against UCF. And I was just so happy to see it. I was doing yard work and kind of listening, having it on while the game was going on. But yeah, just so encouraging to see how the Gators play. And after we were just going off on them for the first couple weeks. Now we've got a 3-2 record
Yeah,
and playing really well. Of course, we're about to hit the meat of our schedule, so all bets are off at this point. But so much better looking now than we did, 2 weeks ago. But we're coming in now to face Tennessee. And Tennessee coming off a tough loss they just took at the hands of Arkansas. But we're going to Knoxville to play number 8 Tennessee, 15.5 point underdogs in this game. And, even with how we've been looking, you just can't have much hope with how things have been coming in. I mean, yes, they were somehow shut down against Arkansas. They only scored 14 points in that game, and I don't know how the Razorbacks were able to stop them in that way. But we've really been relying on Mertz more over Lagway. They've both been playing, but Mertz has been playing far more. They both have been very accurate, keeping things under control. They need to do that in order to win. And the biggest thing is we've got to handle time of possession. We've got to be able to run the ball and create drives and stop Tennessee from having long lasting drives. Because even though Tennessee is known for their big passing game, they are a running team at their heart. They will
Mhm.
line up quickly. They've got those wide receivers spread out wide, and they just do their simple handoffs to Samson. He's almost got 600 yards on the year so far. So far in their 5 games, 587 yards, 12 rushing touchdowns. That's wild.
Wow.
So if you can stop their running game, you can slow down their whole attack. So that's what's going to have to happen for the Gators to have a chance against Tennessee. I don't like the chances overall, but man, a big test coming up to start this huge slate for us now. Have
Yeah.
you had any thoughts from the Gators against UCF or looking at Tennessee?
I mean, yeah, looking at that Tennessee game, I mean, we'll talk about, that kind of later, but I mean, they love to run the ball, and I think Florida, yeah, like you're saying, if they stop that run and force Nico to make plays, I think you guys have a great shot at winning this game.
Yeah, it'll be a test, and I'm excited to watch it. I mean, even coming into these first 5 games we've had, there's been nothing too exciting to see. But man,
Yeah.
just hitting our rivalry games, hitting these fun matchups is always just such an exciting. Even when we're not great, it's fun to
Yeah.
see these games. So let's turn
Exactly.
it over. Let's put our sad glasses on and let's talk took some UCF or USC football that had a tough loss against Minnesota.
Yeah, it was as you were kind of talking about how your guys' season's going, it just kind of hit me like we're both 3-2.
Same
And it's
record.
funny how we got to this point where I started like USC started off on an insane high and is kind of each week kind of dwindling down. And then Florida seemed like, man, season's over. I remember one of the first weeks you were saying we might win 2, 3 games
Yeah.
and already won 3. Um, and you guys are trending up, so it's funny kind of comparing how we're at the same place, but we're kind of just an opposite way to get here. But start off, man, that was a disappointing game. Just the offense scored 17 points, which is a Lincoln Riley offense. Like we're supposed to be putting up insane amount of points. I think it's been just such a methodical offense, and when we made as many mistakes as we did, like that's what's going to happen because you're not going to have that many drives. We could make mistakes with Caleb Williams because he just decided to score within 2, 3 plays each time, or stall out. So we had a ton of drives, and we can make more mistakes, and we end up scoring 40 points. Um, but yeah, our team right now just has an inability to win on the road. I read somewhere that USC is college football's most traveled team so far.
Hmm.
I don't know how that stacks up with like Hawaii and stuff, but it might have been Power Four. But they've already been to Wisconsin, they've been to Minnesota, they're flying back and forth, and you can tell, they look so lethargic on offense
Hmm.
and on defense. And each week it's a game of, how long is it going to take for the offense, to get in rhythm, to get humming? And we moved the ball pretty well all game, but it just didn't seem like we were, you know, on snapping at all levels. But yeah, looking at the drive chart, we drove down first drive, missed a 47-yard field goal, 3-and-out the second drive, and then a 7-minute touchdown drive. And then the next drive, we fumble it inside Minnesota's 25. Then we kicked a field goal to end the half. Starting the second half, another 7-minute touchdown drive.
Hmm.
And then this is when the offensive line, which has been so inconsistent all year, really showed how they just haven't been getting better at all. Um, at the 35, Minnesota's 35. This is if we score a touchdown here, we're up 2 scores, games, you know, pretty much over the way our defense was playing. And then 3-man rush. This is just like in college football 25. You're like, no
Hmm.
way can a 3-man rush get to the quarterback that quickly. And that's what happened. The defensive end just blew by our offensive tackle. And, Miller Moss thinks he has all the time in the world because he only sees 3 guys coming at him and they have a little hitch and go route. And he gets hammered as he's throwing the ball, gets picked off, and the game changes there. Um, After that, we had another 3-and-out. And then Miller led a drive all the way to the 30. Then, with a couple seconds left, he tried to punch one in between 3 guys, and it got picked off to end the game. Um, I think the bright spot on this offense, besides, um, Miller Moss showing how tough he was week in and week out, just getting hammered, is that we had 134 yards rushing from Woody Marks. Quentin Joyner had 44 as well and looked amazing until he fumbled and didn't touch the field after that. But Lincoln Riley just decided to stop running the ball late in the game
Hmm.
when we needed to run the clock out. We threw that gross interception, and that would have been the time. Like, all right, they scored off of a turnover. Let's just give it back to Woody Marks, slow the game down, maybe get in field goal range, take the lead back, and we threw three straight passes with Miller almost getting sacked every single time. So the O line, continues to hinder this offense, but some of the play calling's been suspect. Even PJ Fleck said he knew we wouldn't be able to help ourselves from just spamming the pass plays, and
Mhm.
Minnesota's defensive backs really kept our guys in check. So, you know, it was a tough game, but the defense was okay. They just made Minnesota's offense, which hadn't looked good all year, to be honest. They just made them earn each yard, and they did it pretty well. They took advantage of all the turnovers, and their quarterback made big throws when he needed to. But yeah, we had some missed tackles. Every time I kind of watched it on the rerun, I'm like, is Alex Grinch back? Because it's like our
Mhm.
best tacklers are missing tackles, and we're like, oh gosh, not this again. But we've been beat up, and our depth was tested, especially in the last drive, which I'd also like to say, again, the refs have been very suspect. Watching that UCLA game, like it just feels like they're just hazing all the new guys. Even the Oregon game when they played Michigan State, it was just like,
Mhm.
jeez. They had on the last play, 4th and goal, they do a quarterback sneak. He gets in. It was a touchdown, but they call it short, and then they review it, and it kind of like that Virginia Tech game where you cannot see anything. Like the
Mhm.
quarterback just disappears in the line, and then they were like, ah, he scored, and then gave him the game. So it's tough to watch it. I mean, they won, but there's a lot of weird calls, and it's just something you kind of have to live through. But this is a game where we kind of reminded that Lincoln Riley, it's his third year, but it seems like it's year one of the rebuild,
Mhm.
just because of the 2 years of Caleb with Grinch as DC. But this is year one of the new staff, and now we're unranked. Hopefully, this sparks something as we look to Penn State. They're just going to run the ball, try to run the ball down our throat, just like Minnesota did, just like Michigan tried to, and then they're going to let Drew Aller just let it rip. They struggled a little bit against UCLA, so hopefully, if we get some of our guys back from injury, we'll be able to stop that running game, keep it under control, and just really make Drew Aller throw the ball. And I think that's our best way to win. Kind of like what we're saying with Florida, where we're going to make this young quarterback make the plays, and I you're willing to bet more on him not making the plays than just letting Nick Singleton just run all over this defense. But yeah,
Right.
if offensively, if we were able to run the ball just like we did last week, I think that's probably our best chance to win next week. So we'll see. I'm not as confident as I was probably last week if you asked me about this Penn State game, but there are
Sure.
chances, 1 in a million or whatever. It's still a pretty close game, like spread wise. So we'll see.
Yeah, against now number 4 ranked Penn
Yeah,
State, which when I
yeah.
looked at the AP poll, I was shocked. It just
I mean,
it it was weird just to see Penn State at number 4. It makes sense, but they're jumping up there. Yeah, looking at these last 3 drives, USC scored a touchdown to go up 17-10, and then went 8 plays interception, three
yeah,
and out, 7 plays interception.
yeah,
It goes back to finishing. That's been the
yeah.
message of my. Thankfully, I'm glad we don't do a Jaguars podcast, but as a big Jaguars fan, we finally got our first win this Sunday. But the word for us has been finish. Like we're not
Yeah,
finishing games, and it's the same
yeah,
thing here with USC, playing pretty well, having a lead, and then just not able to close it out. So, gonna need to turn things around. A lot of things are gonna have to change in order to start getting on a winning track again. But we've got many more good games to talk about from this week. We've got to start off with number 1 going down. Alabama didn't go lose to Auburn. They didn't go lose to out of conference Oregon. They lost to Vanderbilt
oh
at
my gosh.
Vanderbilt, which Nick Saban has said before is the easiest place to play. They and the thing about this game, it wasn't some fluke kind of thing that happened. They got
Yeah,
beat by
yeah,
Vanderbilt up and
yeah,
down the field over and over again. Vandy making plays 40-35. They put up 40 points on Alabama. Man, what did you see going on in this game?
I mean, I think this is not like the typical trap game, but this is one of those hangover trap games. This is you had an emotional game against Georgia, back and forth, and then now you're on the road against a team that you think sucks. Like, you got to think, I saw something that Nick Saban, the amount of points Vanderbilt scored against Nick Saban was 16. They
Yeah.
scored 23 in the first half.
Mm,
Like, that is insane. It wasn't like you're saying, it wasn't a fluke. It's not like they were getting lucky, but they're moving the ball. Diego Pavia, which we talked about a couple weeks ago, just looked great. I mean, looking at these stats, he went 16 for 20.
yeah.
He I know the defensive backs for Alabama were suspect last week, but when Diego Pavia is making plays that like he was just on point in rhythm, they're running the ball well. Like you
Yeah.
would think, okay, there's no way they're going to be able to run the ball. They ran the ball. I think they ended up getting 166 yards rushing, and it just felt like Alabama was just getting beat up. And I mean, they went 12 for 18 third downs. They're just moving the ball, and it just seemed like Alabama just couldn't do anything to stop them. If you told me one team was number one and the other one was an unranked and just blind test, might have looked the other way around.
Yeah, and what I said before about the Gators having any chance of beating Tennessee this week, get this. Time of possession, Vanderbilt beat them 42 to 18.
Jeez.
Alabama had the ball for 18 minutes, not even 18 minutes.
Yeah.
They were just able to control the clock, control
Yeah.
the game. When you look at their drives, 10 play drive that took 6 minutes. They had a 17 play drive that took 10 minutes, 8 plays that took 4. Over and over, these drives are just taking up time and time and time. And, you know, Alabama was able to get some quick plays. Again, that
Yeah.
pass to Ryan Williams on the sideline, nasty.
You can't
He
stop that.
is a freak. But Ryan Williams only gets 4 touches all game.
Yeah.
4 touches. You got to get that man the ball. And just so much to say about Alabama losing to
Yeah.
Vandy, and it's one game. Again, they can come back from it, but we this is a Vandy team that lost to Georgia State 2 weeks
Hmm.
ago,
Yeah.
that barely lost to Missouri last week, and they showed what they're really capable of by beating Alabama in such a crazy game. Man, how about another top five upset? We had Arkansas take down Tennessee 19 to 14. What'd you see there, man?
I mean, the running game for Tennessee was moving, but it
Mm-hmm.
was just every time Arkansas said, "Hey, third downs, we're gonna make Nico throw the ball. We're gonna make this young quarterback make decisions, make the correct decisions." Didn't help that there are a ton of penalties. It felt like every time Tennessee kind of got close to a third down or got a third down, it was just like, "Oh, nope, you're going right back." And it was one of just those defensive, slugfests where Arkansas, they said, "All right, we're gonna let you get your running yards where we're going to back guys up." I think they only got around like 5 yards per completion or something like that, where Nico couldn't let it rip and he had to dump off, dump off, dump off. Every time he tried to let it rip, incomplete pass, couldn't get a first down. I mean, just looking at the stats, it doesn't look like anything crazy, but when you're having Taylon Green transfer from Boise State, looking better throwing the ball. He had over 100 more yards passing than
Mm.
Nico, which can happen. And I mean, I think Tennessee offensively, if they want to really explode, they have to be able to make sure that, Nico gets on track. He went 17 for 29, which for 158 yards passing. Like, you're
Mm.
going to need a more explosive passing game if you want to complement this running game.
Yeah, we're talking about Diego Pavia was averaging 12 and a half yards an attempt in
Hmm.
that game against Alabama, and Nico's only averaging 5 yards an attempt in this
Yeah.
game. So they need to get those plays going down the field. Big problem for Tennessee is that Jackson Ross led them in yards for the day. Jackson Ross is their punter. 7 punts. 7 punts Arkansas
Yeah.
held them to for 299 yards, the most yards for anyone on the day for either team. But they were able to or Arkansas was just able to
Yeah.
stop them, and hold them to 14. So really impressive game for them as Tennessee now drops to number 8 in the country. But let's run through some of these other games that stood out. We'll go just quick hits on some other ones. Man, it looked like Miami was gonna get killed by Cal. They
Yeah.
come back, storming back 21 points in the fourth quarter. I mean, in a late night showdown here on the West Coast, I was up watching it, and man, Cam Ward just makes plays. He
Yeah.
makes things happen. They were
Yeah.
able to pull it out in the last second, and thought they were going to lose, but they got the victory.
Yeah, I mean, it was awesome seeing game day out at Cal. Kind of like it shows the world that, there's more than 12 teams that they cycle through. There's more culture everywhere. People actually care about football on the West Coast. I will say one thing. Honestly, Miami probably like Miami deserved to win that game, but that missed targeting call. If they call
Mm.
that, I don't think Miami wins. I mean, but Cal fought hard, and it just like when they're up by 25, it just felt like they just kind of let go of the gas and they went into
Yep.
let's just try to win this mode. And you could tell Justin Wilcox loved the guy. He didn't know how to manage, keeping that lead. And I mean, this is something they'll learn from, but I think Cal, that's a team that is going to give some other teams tough fits the rest of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a classic ACC matchup if I've ever seen one. Let's go to Miami, number 8 team in the country, almost lost. The number 9 team in the country, Missouri, did lose, and they lost big. What'd you see there, Nathaniel?
I I'll talk about this a little later, but I mean, I saw this coming. Brady Cook, he hasn't looked good all year. I mean, it was always like, all right, we're running the ball well with Noel, you can get your big plays to Weiss and to Luther Burden, but they've never had to lean on Cook. And last year, he did great down the stretch. But when, when the rubber meets the road, he just didn't perform. I mean, he was like 13 for 30 or something like that. And the offense, when they couldn't get it started and Texas A&M just start gashing them early, you could tell they couldn't get it rolling. They couldn't keep up. The game just got out of hand way too fast.
Yeah, absolutely. And I heard right before the game that Connor Weigman was going to be able to start, and
Yeah.
I was actually wanting to switch my pick because I had more confidence in the backup than
Yeah.
Weigman, but still they came out and dominated. So great win for
Yeah.
Texas A&M there as they're shooting up the boards. And our last top 10 loss of the day, Michigan went down against Washington 27-17. We talked about this last week. I still had hope for Michigan, but they fell apart in the end as well. They were up 17-14, but got outscored by 13-0 in the fourth quarter. And they had to bring in Jack Tuttle to play some quarterback. And man, Michigan, just their offensive woes were showing themselves in this game. And Will Rogers, very experienced quarterback, led the Huskies to a victory here. Just 429 yards of total offense there, 315 passing yards for Washington. They just played a great game and were able to stymie Michigan and stop their strength.
Yeah. I mean, they saw the blueprint to stop Michigan, and they can't pass the ball at all.
Yep.
And they put a lid on the big plays for the most part. Khalil Mullings didn't have those home run hits he's been having all year long. And I mean, Donovan Edwards, besides his one big game, couldn't do anything offensively. Alex Orji looked horrible passing the ball like he has all year. Like you said, Jack Tuttle had to come in and try to revive this offense, but it's exactly how you knew Washington was going to beat them is just focus on the run game on defense and then offense, just do what you've been doing. Lean on Will Rogers to just spread the ball out. And I mean, yeah, they ran the ball well, they passed the ball really well, and it was an overall great offensive effort. And they just kept chipping at that Michigan defense. And then, like you said, fourth quarter, damn broke. It just was too much for Michigan.
Five of our top 11 teams this week lost. Huge set of games, and we've got some good games this week that we're going to talk about as well when we get to our picks. But we'll stop here and we'll move on to our trivia question. We've got another one this week. This time
Ooh.
I'm asking Nathaniel. So let's get it going. Man, I was thinking about what to do here, and we're getting into the time of the season where we're going to start some rivalries,
Okay,
especially
okay. Oh
big
gosh.
rivalries, and we'll have some, especially at the end of the year. What
Hmm.
I've got here is a list of 10 rivalry nicknames.
No, no.
So I might switch it up, go back and forth. Sometimes I'll give you the nickname and ask you for the teams that are involved.
Oh
Sometimes I might give you the teams and ask you what the rivalry nickname
oh
is. How do you feel
gosh.
about this?
Honestly, this is probably the worst one you could have picked. Like I could maybe pick out names and stuff, but rivalries, this is gonna be tough. But you know what? I have confidence.
Yeah.
Maybe something in the back of my head was scrolling through NCAA football so many times and seeing those names. Maybe something will pop up, so we'll see.
Some of these are pretty well known, so I think you'll be able to get them, but let's see. Let's see how we do. Okay.
All right, here we go.
Let's start off with this one. Let's go Alabama Auburn first.
Iron Bowl, right?
Iron Bowl. That's right. Alabama
There we go.
Auburn
There we go.
Iron
There
Bowl.
we
Good
go.
start. Good start. Okay, how about this one? Who plays in the Civil War?
I feel like there's a ton of them, but is are you referring to Oregon, Oregon State?
That is correct. Oregon,
There we go.
Oregon
There we
State.
go.
Yes. Okay, two for two. That's a good start. Let's yeah, I'll give you the rivalry name for this one. How about the Egg Bowl?
Oh, I was when you said it, I was thinking this is Mississippi State, Ole Miss.
There you go. Ole Miss, Mississippi State.
Yeah.
But do you have a memory in your mind from Ole Miss, Mississippi State?
Is it when the dude did the fire hydrant? That literally
Elijah
that's the
Moore.
only the only thing that comes
Elijah
to my mind.
Moore, wide receiver for Ole Miss. He did the dog peeing and he backed their extra point up and they missed it and lost the game. Classic, classic. Okay,
Almost
how
on par
about
with Wilson throwing the shoe.
you got to bring up the shoe game against LSU. You know what? We'll move on from that one. Okay, how about this one? Can you give me the name of the OU Texas rivalry?
Oh God, what the way you said it, like it's the Red River rivalry, right? But then I feel like the way you said it, it's not.
Yeah, no, that's right. There's been
Okay,
some
okay.
debate about what it
Okay.
fully is. It They say the Red River Shootout. I've
Oh,
heard
shootout, yeah.
Red River Rivalry, Red River
Yeah,
Showdown. They've like tried to
yeah,
change it in
yeah,
the past, but
yeah.
Shootout I think is
Mm-hmm.
officially okay.
Go.
We've got those. You're doing great so far. Doing great. How about can you give me the Sunshine Showdown?
It has to, is it Arizona, Arizona State?
It's not Arizona, Arizona State.
Okay, Sunshine. Okay, what's the Sunshine State? Is that Florida? Is Florida the
Is it
Sunshine
Florida?
State? Shoot. Okay, okay. You said the Sunshine Rivalry or
The
Sunshine
Sunshine Showdown.
Showdown? I don't think it's Florida, Florida State. Is you would have said something if it was like Florida, UCF. I feel like Miami has to have to. Oh my gosh. Is it? Oh, and now I'm just thinking of Sunshine from Remember the Titans.
Oh man.
Okay, Florida, Florida State.
That's correct.
Okay, there we
Yes.
go. There we go.
There you go. Yes, bringing it back. I was saying go with your gut. Go with your gut. Yeah, Sunshine Showdown. Some of the different Florida matchups have have nicknames that go along with that, but that's a good one. Here we go. Can you tell me how about the OU Oklahoma State game?
Oh, that's the Bedlam something. Is it just called Bedlam?
Bedlam. Just called Bedlam.
There we
Yes.
go.
Good job.
There we
Yeah,
go.
that one I used to get confused with OU Texas. I just like
Hmm.
wasn't sure what was
Yeah,
what,
yeah.
but Bedlam, OU Oklahoma State. Okay, let's see. Do you know the Deep South's oldest rivalry?
Is that the one game that just happened, Georgia Auburn?
That is correct.
I
Yeah,
think I
Deep
only know
South's.
that because I have a friend that said it like a week ago, and he's a big Auburn
Mhm.
fan. I'm like, the Deep South? Like, what does this even mean? But
Yeah, they
yeah,
played
I
last
guess.
week. They first played each other in 1892.
Oh, okay, so maybe that makes sense. 89.
Yeah, they've
That's an
played
old rivalry.
129 games against each other. So
Oh wow.
wild rivalry there between Auburn and Georgia. You're doing great. You weren't confident in yourself. You're
Yeah.
doing
Oh
well.
man.
These next few are tough though. Here we go. How about, do you know the Apple Cup?
Washington, Washington State.
There you go. As a Pac-12 guy,
Yeah, I know.
I
You had it.
I had to throw
I
in that one
yeah.
so I figured you would know it.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we only have two left. Two left
Okay.
here. And these are
Okay.
tough. These are tough.
Okay.
How about the war on I-4?
Oh, I've heard this before. Oh gosh.
This is difficult.
Hmm. The war on the I-4. Interstate 4.
Yes.
Is this Oh, I feel like it's between teams in Florida, right?
Yes.
Is it oh gosh. It's UCF and someone, right?
Oh,
Is it UCF? Oh gosh, no, no, no. It's
he's there.
I I only remember this because there was a really stupid Twitter interaction I remember seeing like a year ago. And like UCF Twitter is so annoying, so I knew it's UCF and is it UCF and Florida State?
No.
No. Is it UCF and Florida Atlantic?
Nope. I'll tell you,
Florida,
I
Southern Florida.
very close. Just take the
Florida
earn off.
International? Oh,
No, no.
South Florida.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah,
UCF,
USF.
USF. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I-4 runs from Tampa to Orlando. So
Okay.
UCF, USF. That's one from my backyard. So definitely, I've been on I-4 a few too many times. Anyone who's been there knows the traffic. But last one, we'll finish off with the battle for Paul Bunyan, the
Oh,
Paul Bunyan tax.
this is a Michigan team. Is it the Michigan teams? Michigan, Michigan State?
Very well done. Nice job. Hey, clap
Oh.
it up right there for Nathaniel. Yeah, that was well done, especially for not being confident going in.
Yeah, I think as you started to say it, like just the names just it just kept popping into memory. I will say I had the Paul Bunyan, the Axe trophy that was in my head like the beginning of the
Mm.
segment. Like I'm like, yeah, because yeah, yeah, love that trophy. I think when I was a kid, Michigan State was actually like my favorite non USC team. And
Mm.
then I think it was because I watched some highlight of them winning the Paul Bunyan Trophy
Yeah.
against Michigan. This was like right before it was a rerun of a USC game where we
Mm.
smacked Washington State. And it was a highlight right before that game started. So I'd watch that game over and over again. So I just keep watching like Michigan State whoop Michigan right before I watch USC whoop Washington State. So just ingrained right there.
Well, they've got a classic moment when the Michigan punter dropped the ball. Michigan State grabs it, runs it in for the touchdown. The
Yeah.
announcer's going crazy. You got I think it was Harbaugh, his face on the
You're
sideline
just
just
like
blank. So great. Does USC have any game nicknames?
yeah. So we have gosh, the one against UCLA, it's like the battle for the victory bell or something like that.
Yeah.
And then I guess yeah, when we play Notre Dame, I don't know if there's an official name, but we the trophy is a jeweled Sha something something like
Yes.
you I don't think I've ever pronounced that word correctly in my life. I've
Yeah.
seen it spelled out. I've heard it said many times. I don't think I personally have ever said that word. So I'm not gonna
I
attempt it
was
right
Yeah, I was looking
now.
for USC games in preparation for this segment, and
Yeah.
I saw the USC UCLA has a bunch of different names, like the Crosstown
Yeah.
Showdown and Battle for
Yeah.
LA, like all
Hmm.
different things. And then, yeah, I saw that for Notre Dame, so I just didn't include either of them because they
It's
were
all
kind of
good.
strange. But man, Florida, back in the day, Florida Miami was the battle for the Seminole War Canoe Trophy. And then, yeah,
Interesting.
they had a Seminole War Canoe. And then Florida, Georgia is probably the best one, which was known as the world's largest outdoor cocktail party because of all of the tailgating that goes on before the game.
Yeah.
Back in Jacksonville, I'd love to go to those games. But okay, good segment. Great job, Nathaniel, on that one. We'll have
Thank you.
another
Thank
trivia
you.
question that I'll be answering next week. But let's move on now to our risers and fallers. Like we said, a lot of craziness going on in the top 25 this week. So we'll start with you, Nathaniel. Who's your biggest riser?
So I'm going to say, there's a lot of teams that made big steps last week, especially with all the upsets. But kind of one that's been under the radar is Iowa State. I mean, 5-0. I disrespected them. I said I didn't even mention them as a contender last week when we talked about all the chaos happening in the Big 12. I mean, they've planted themselves firmly in that race. They are the highest ranked Big 12 team. They dismantled Baylor last week. And,
Mm.
Baylor, solid team. They've given some other teams a run, but Iowa State just had their way. They had a big win over Iowa earlier this season where they came back down like 17 or 20 or something like that to win that game. And they've looked good all year. Matt Campbell, funny last, he kind of like pops up every 3 to 4 years and it's like, he has a top 15 team. And then everyone says, they're going to make the next step. And then they just kind of go on these ups and downs. But yeah, they're looking good. And, I wouldn't be surprised if they win the Big 12. But of course, since I said that, they're probably going to lose next week because that's what happens every time I talk good about a Big 12 team.
That's fair. Yeah. Man, definitely a riser there. And like you said, we have so many to choose from. I mean, the the easy thing to say would be to go with a team like Texas A&M, right? They jump
Hmm.
up 10 spots, really moving up in the standings there. And the idea of them moving up in people's minds too. A team that we kind of talked about before, and we mentioned them last week a bit. I'm going to say Clemson. After losing early in the season, just getting killed by Georgia, we were saying things like Cade Klubnik is not the guy.
Hmm.
They they're just going to have to regroup. Dabo needs to recruit transfer portal players. They can't just rely on
Yeah.
things. Man, they've jumped their way all the way back up into the top 10. They've looked really good for a series of weeks now. Their offense is really getting things humming. They had a 29-13 win over FSU this past week, but they're just putting things together. They're starting to play more cohesively as a team. So I'm looking at them, which they have an fairly easy schedule the rest of the way. It is a travesty that Miami Clemson is not happening in the regular season this year.
Yeah.
We'll most
Yeah.
likely be seeing it in their conference championship game, but Clemson continuing to move their way up back in the public eye, and it's big to see. Biggest faller here again, we've got different options to choose from. It's tough for me to choose one here as I'm looking at it, but man, easy pickings. Let's just talk Michigan a little more. And Michigan dropping 14 spots here down to number 24. They should be glad they're still ranked at this point, but they're falling apart to not have the passing game that they had in the past. And you know, last year you could call JJ McCarthy a game manager. That's what people were thinking because their defense was so good, their running game was stellar. People forget when Cade McNamara was there, JJ McCarthy was the stud freshman. And
Yeah.
the everyone was saying McNamara's got to get out of the way because this guy's coming up and he's going to take things over. I think we forget about the difference that he made on that team. And
Yeah.
now with the struggling quarterback play, not being able to get things going, they have a tough road to face for the rest of the way. And I'm not so confident in what they're going to be looking like in the Big Ten for the rest of the year. So 4-2 now, dropping low into the rankings. I could see them dropping out of the top 25 at some point, but Michigan would overall be my biggest follower this week.
Yeah. For me, it's like you couldn't go USC. They fell, I think, the most out of
Yeah.
every team, went from 11 all the way down. Also kind of sucks seeing LSU right back to where they started, and we're not even sniffing the top 20. We're technically 26. But you know what?
Yeah.
For my own mental health, I just want to celebrate something, okay? I want to be happy. I want to
Yes.
celebrate, and I have to go Missouri, right? I have to do it again. This will be the last time, I promise,
Last time,
because
no more.
now finally, this is the third time I picked them as a biggest faller, even though they kind of were rising some of the times I said biggest faller. But
Hmm.
this was the game I was waiting for. It was their first test, first big test, and they failed it big time. They dropped 12 spots for a reason, and I've been ringing the fraud alert for the last 3, 4 weeks, just like, hey
Hmm.
guys, Missouri, they're not great. And finally, it's been realized I'm at rest. I don't have to talk about a top 10 team that isn't a top 10 team anymore. They got blown out by Texas A&M. Brady Cook looked horrible all game, as we talked about earlier. They couldn't move the ball,
Hmm.
and they have realistically one shot. They only have a loss. They can get back in the playoff conversations. They're only number 21. They have one loss. They have one shot. They do play Oklahoma, but we'll talk about this later. I think Oklahoma's not going to be ranked by the
Mm.
time they play Missouri. But if they beat Alabama, and if Alabama stays a one-loss team, they beat Alabama. That's the only way they get kind of back in that conversation. Do
No
I
shot.
think they're going to though? Probably not. Probably not. So we'll see. We'll see.
Risers and fallers. There were plenty of options this week, but let's take this now to our final segment of the episode. We've got our picks for this week. Coming off of last week, you went 4-1. I was 3-2, bringing us back to even on the season. We have been tight this whole way.
Yeah.
Both of us are sitting at 18-13, which if you're betting based on us, you're making money. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, we are even up now, and man, we've got some good games this week. 5 to choose from, and we're starting off Texas Oklahoma is our first matchup. This which we already mentioned, right? We talked about it, the Red River shootout that they'll be playing against each other. Number 1 Texas, number 18 Oklahoma. Texas is a 14-point favorite in this game, and I'll say Quinn Ewers is expected to start.
hmm
Sarkisian was saying he feels good about him starting in this game. So who goes first today? Do you remember?
Ooh.
I
I want to say you went first last time because I think I picked Texas A&M second.
think you're right. I think you're right about
Yeah.
that. So let's
I'll
start off.
I'll t yeah.
You
I can
got it.
start off. Yeah, I mean, this is easy. This is easy. I mean, I literally talked about it 10 seconds ago. I don't think it matters if Quinn Ewers or Arch Manning is playing. They're both great quarterbacks, and I think Oklahoma's offense is just so dead at this point. I mean, struggling with Auburn, struggling heavily against Tennessee. I think it's going to be an easy Texas win.
I agree. I'm going with Texas, and the thought that Quinn Ewers is back gives even more hope. I think with Arch Manning, they still win the game. And Texas just overall is a better team. So going with the Longhorns. Next game, game of the week right here. Ohio State traveling to Oregon, number 2 against number 3. An Oregon team, though, that we've been considering is on fraud alert this whole time. They have not performed as well as we would expect. They really, compared to Ohio State, we're not so confident in. But I mean, looking at the game so far this year, here's Ohio State's games: Akron, Western Marshall, and then they blew out Michigan State and Iowa. Their closest game was what, 28 points. They won this last game by. Oregon has had some closer results, barely beat Boise State, which I'll say is a pretty good team now
Yeah.
up there in the top 25. But then, I mean, they've won their last few games against Oregon State, UCLA, and Michigan State by 20 plus each time. So they're starting to look back on the right track. This is again at home for Oregon. Ohio State's coming in there and now a new Big Ten matchup. Who do I think is going to win? I think Ohio State still has the strength. Their playmaking ability and their defense, I think, will prove to stand the test of time. And they had, Iowa is a good defensive team that they've faced. They're not as good as last year or some previous years, but a good defensive team that they handled well and were able to score 35 points on. So I have confidence in the Buckeyes to go in to Eugene and win this game and come out potentially number 1 in the country if the rankings want to jump them up to there.
Yeah. This one's hard for me. I mean, obviously it's a 2v3 matchup. I've definitely been thinking Oregon. Oregon isn't the team that we have envisioned them in the beginning. But this
Right.
is also an Oregon team that 2021 went to Ohio State. A CJ Stroud led Ohio State and just took
Mm,
it to them. And I think Oregon, out of all the Pac-12 teams that moved over, they were the most ready to make this jump. They had physicality all across the board. But for me, I think they'll match up. I think this is going to be a close game. OSU's only, the spread is OSU -3 right now. I think it's going to be a close game, but I think this game is going to be decided on the new transfer quarterbacks. I think
mm,
Ohio State has gotten to a system where they're not relying on Will Howard because Will Howard isn't a guy you want to rely on, in my opinion.
right.
And they have a great running game, and they just run it with Henderson and Judkins and just keep pushing it down people's throats. And then Will Howard goes, finds Jeremiah Smith, who has been insane next to Ryan Williams as a great
Yeah.
freshman wide receiver. And he's been making amazing plays. And I think that's the system they're running. And I think that's going to get them to victory because if you look on the other side, Oregon, they are putting all their faith, all their trust on Dylan Gabriel. Say, win us games. He's won them every game so far, but each time it looks sketchy and sketchy. And I watched that Michigan State
Right.
game. If Michigan State had a pulse on offense, that game would have been vastly different. So I think Ohio State, it's going to be a close game, but I think their offensive system is going to be too efficient. And I think Dylan Gabriel is going to make a couple mistakes late.
Yeah. Makes sense. So we're both on Ohio State there. Moving on to another really good matchup here in the SEC. We got 2 one-loss SEC teams. Ole Miss is traveling to LSU to play there. Ole Miss is a 3-point favorite in this game, which is dicey, even with it being at LSU. Seeing this, man, a close game that we should be expecting to see. What are your thoughts?
I think, yeah, this is going to be a close game. I definitely thought in Death Valley that, it'd be slightly skewed LSU's way. I think after their loss against USC, which, man, does that feel like a lifetime ago?
Mm,
But after they lost, their offense started to, try to get itself on track. They did okay against Nichols. They barely survived South Carolina, but I think since then they've been starting to pick it up. With they beat UCLA pretty convincingly, and then they just demolished and picked apart South Alabama. And I think that's kind of this. Those were games that their offense needed. Their defense has been vastly improved over last year. And I think Garrett Nussmeier, he's been doing well all year long. He's really shown that he has an NFL type arm. And, you know, Ole Miss, I love Jackson Dart, but I think they've just shown too many inconsistencies. I mean, that game against Kentucky, that's
mm,
scary. Like
yeah.
you can't have that. They went against South Carolina and their defense held really well against South Carolina, but that offense was slow. It didn't look amazing like it did against everyone else besides Kentucky. So I think just with the physicality of LSU, I think LSU at home, they're going to take this
Yeah, my thoughts are similar on some of it. I mean, looking at their games so far this season, it's going to come down to defense. And they're saying the LSU so far has been giving up 20, 21, 33 to South Carolina. The the Ole Miss defense is averaging giving up only 7.5 points a game. And I know they've been playing some suspect opponents early in the year, but 0, 3, 6, 13, 17, and 3 is how many points they've given up in every game. Their defense has really showed up, which is a surprise looking at Lane Kiffin teams. And
one.
because the offense has also been great, but that defense has been standing up. And I think they'll be able to do it as well. I maybe I just have a wrong thought about this, but I've never been huge on Garrett Nussmeier. He's having a fantastic year, but
Yeah.
I think going into the meat of the SEC's schedule, they might have some times of faltering. So
Yeah.
I'm going to pick Ole Miss to continue to redeem that Kentucky loss for Jackson Dart to keep his Heisman hope alive for me. But no, I think that their defense is going to stand up and Ole Miss is going to go into the Bayou and get that win. Okay, we're going on to your team. Number 4, Penn State going to USC. Penn State, a 5.5 point favorite going into this game. And man, questions galore about both of these teams here. What are we really seeing from Penn State? Uh, Aller has been really good so far this year. They've had fairly easy victories. Against Bowling Green, it was kind of dicey there for a little bit, but have played well. They're up to number 4 in the country now, and USC has just had these question marks. We're a few weeks ago talking about Miller Moss as a Heisman candidate, and now we're questioning everything about
Yeah.
what's going on for the Trojans. So going out to play at USC in this game is going to be a huge factor for USC for sure. But I still put my trust in Penn State, which I haven't done so far this year. I have openly said I'm not confident in Drew Aller. I'm not confident in their team as a whole. They're pretenders a lot of the time, but I think they'll still be able to go and beat USC on their home field, much to your chagrin, Nathaniel. And now I'm what, 1-1 picking against USC?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we'll see if I can get it
Yeah,
right
yeah.
again. We'll see if I can get it right again. What you got?
Yeah, this one's tough. I mean, hey, I was looking at the game preview. ESPN Analytics, 51.9% chance USC wins. So,
No.
maybe we'll go with the analytics here, but I mean, this is just a, you know, game. If USC, you want to win, like I was saying earlier, we have to stop their running game. I mean,
hmm
their offense isn't necessarily explosive. Like that's one thing where Penn State has been needing to fix. Like if you want to beat the big boys, you need an explosive passing game. Just be
Yeah.
able to just let it rip. And that kind of showed early with West Virginia, but since then it's just been slow and just methodical. Just give it to Singleton, see what he can do. I know he's been having some health issues, so we'll see if he plays against USC. One hope that I do have, USC is undefeated at home and on neutral sites this year. So
Okay.
technically the LSU game was a home game. 3-0 at home slash neutral, 0-2 away. This is at home. Miller Moss, he just has to take care of the ball, and I think they need to figure out a way for those our offensive tackles who have been just trash pretty much almost all year long. Just figure out how to kind of neutralize that. Maybe get some chips with all our tight ends. Who knows? But I'm going with the ESPN analytics. I think, I hope. I don't even think I think. I think Penn State's probably gonna win, but I hope USC wins. I am 1-1 this year picking USC. Hopefully we go 2-1. And
One of us is going to be 2-1. So we'll see what it is after this. And we're going on to our final pick of the week. We've got my Gators traveling to Tennessee. Florida taking on number 8 Tennessee, going in as 15.5 point underdogs. And yeah, we'll see what goes on with this one. Your final pick. What do you got, Nathaniel?
this one, I think it is tougher than people are giving. I mean, that 15.5 line is insane. It is at Rocky Top, but I mean, Florida is kind of on the up and up. They've had obviously big losses to Miami and Texas A&M, but looking at them now, Miami's one of the top teams in the country. Texas A&M did Missouri, a top 10 team, even dirtier than they did
Hmm.
Florida. So I think this is going to be a close game. I think it's going to be within 15 and a half, especially with Tennessee. Their offense has been, struggling. They kind of handled Oklahoma, but their offense wasn't anything special. They obviously put up 71 against Kent State. They put up 69 against Chattanooga. And they destroyed NC State, but NC State's not looking like a top 25 team like they were at the beginning of the year. So I think Florida is going to be able to keep them from scoring a bunch, and I think they're going to keep it close, but I think Tennessee probably wins in a 3 to 7 point win game.
Close one there. Yeah, this is our second time where both of our teams are in the pick'ems for the week. This one, it's tough, and I agree. Maybe there's more hope today than there was in previous weeks about this matchup, but I go in looking at the defenses here, and yes, Florida came back and played a really good game this past week against UCF, but overall in the season, Florida's given up almost 400 yards a game of offense to its opponents, 24 points a game. In college football, that's just not getting it done. They're way down the list. Whereas Tennessee is in the top 5 in total defense this season, only giving up 227. They're giving up 9 points a game to their opponents. James Pierce Jr. Leads the way there with their defense. And the biggest thing here, I think, is Tennessee coming back home after a tough loss in Arkansas. Heupel is going to get those guys going, get them hyped. I know that Florida's going to come in there with some juice after winning a couple games and getting onto a good streak, but man, I just think that Tennessee's going to overpower them. The big chunk plays is what has always been our downfall, especially against Tennessee. I think back to being a student and seeing Josh Dobbs just run and pass for huge plays against us. Then the Hendon Hooker doing the same thing, and just our defense leaving big gaps and holes. And I think there will be a few of those big plays in the game that turn the tide to make it go Tennessee's way. I could see them winning by even, yeah, right around that spread mark, 14-17. Like you were saying, I think we might keep it close for a little bit, but I just don't have the confidence that we will end up winning. So I got Tennessee, as sad as it makes me, but those are our picks for the week. And that's our final segment. Man, I don't think we went under an hour.
Oh, great. Oh, great.
We went long here, but man, there's just so much good football to discuss. So thanks everyone for listening. It's been great to have another episode of the Swampy Coliseum podcast. Again, listen, follow us on Spotify, on YouTube, on Instagram. We'll be giving updates throughout the week, giving some instant reactions to our teams, and we're always glad to talk football. For Nathaniel Gilmore, I'm Andrew Hudson. We'll talk to you again next week.